It's true, I knew Samson would be a little rough. And I knew I was signing up for a game I probably wouldn't jive with, but I thought I'd give it a fair shake. I couldn't stave off the curiosity. I mean, it's a development team headed by the co-founder of Avalanche Studios, that's Just Cause and Mad Max, though it seems to peg him as the sole founder on the website. It's self-identifying as a simpler game, a very focused project, a few good systems done right, the good old days, eh? Then again, that's a big shift from their original plan for a much more ambitious video game. Liquid Swords was cut down to size by our new favorite word in the industry. Can you guess? Layoffs. We'll never know how many were let go as none of that has been disclosed, but they say they're very, very sad about it, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now. It's clear that this was an unintended pivot. If not explicitly, then by the fact that they were knee-deep in damage control pre-launch. I guess I wasn't the only one expecting it to be a little rough.
The only thing for people like me is to keep going. Keep grinding. Keep doing the work.
Oh, wait, so hold on. This isn't early access? Like not early access as in it's full release? Okay, cool. Ignore the intro then.
You alright?
No, I'm really not. I need help.
Okay.
So because this isn't a regular old review, it won't be a regular old video either. In fact, instead of just talking about the game, I'm going to show you a snippet of the game's description on its Steam page and then directly contrast that with some gameplay. So with a bit of help, I can let the game speak for itself. But before I do that, I want to front load this video with the good, because I know full well of the unsung blood, sweat and tears that go into games, even the not so good ones. Oh, and if you don't really give a shit, no worries, there are timestamps. On launch, I was presented with a nice, clean title screen, and despite a few quirks, I'm a fan of the UI. Thematically consistent, simple, for a game like this, that's all I need. Samson begins with a comic strip style intro cutscene that in my book, my little comic book, is pretty damn cool. I'm really fond of the art style, and the narration is, yeah, campy, but it has that Max Payne style Hollywood grit that I think suits this game quite well. The voice acting as a package is no different, but more from an it's bland enough but good enough to fit in anywhere kind of perspective. It follows that up with another hit of, hey, this isn't so bad, in the form of some nicer than you'd expect visuals, and some pretty awesome lighting. The game still has that Unreal Engine 5 stink to it, and comes with all the bells and whistles of modern graphical fidelity, like ray reconstruction, but it's surprisingly soft on my nostrils this time around, even on the performance side of things. Now, I have a nice rig, no question, so it's hard for me to say whether it will perform well for you, and in saying that, I was only getting around 40 to 50 frames without interpolation, but that was at 4K, everything cranked up to max, and whoever implemented FrameGen into this puppy should be a mainstay at every studio, because it shouldn't be that bloody smooth at such low base frame rates. You know, at this point, the game is holding up well enough. The cracks are starting to show, mind you, but it brought me right back with some better than average vehicle handling. The cars can feel a bit boat-like in certain circumstances, and the streets are a little narrow for how much the handling reminds me of Grand Theft Auto 4, but I definitely had a blast driving around the city. The city itself, while unimpressive in about every other area, is impressive in its layout. There are winding paths and alleyways. If there was more to fill it out, it might have been a joy to explore. Not to mention there's a surprising amount of smartly placed clutter and detail around the joint too. And while I don't think they come close to unlocking the potential of the core gameplay loop Samson promises, I do commend them for drumming that up after refocusing on a much smaller game. If you keep your eyes peeled, you'll notice a ton of love put into a fair few areas here, but that's where it ends, for me at least. So with that out of the way, let's see what Liquid Swords themselves have to say about Samson. Our first snippet, directly ripped from the official Steam page, is or that would be the case if the law responded to anything more than a crime committed directly in front of them. But only by Samson, not the motherfucker that just ramped over the hood of their car, dropping their magical car health bar by about half. And, well, if they did respond, it'd look something like this. They'd old man drive slowly behind the car until I dip into any little side street, and they'd continue diligently pursuing me by driving forward a little bit and sitting at the edge of what I thought was a circle on the map, but I suppose is just like a massive cop force field or something. But hey, he got out once they decided they'd done their jobs well enough and then passed by me almost immediately after the chase ended. Can people have face blindness for cars? Is that a thing? Next up, Liquid Swords has this to say. Okay, let's take this one point by point. Brawler combat, I guess, but it looks like this. Even without the jank, there's not much to it. For a game framing engaging melee combat as one of its drawing features, the fact that there's only a handful of attacks, an even smaller handful of finishes, and not the budget equivalent of Spartan Rage from God of War, but taken from the budget equivalent bin outside of the budget equivalent store. It also failed to trigger until I gave it a few inputs every single time. Momentum? Yeah, if the running attacks could actually connect, but they don't. Not one of mine did. Terrain? You know what? I guess that's true. I did notice that these utter fools had no recourse for the fortress that I had built below my knees. It was a little fence thing, but they couldn't do anything about it. And improvised tools, this is almost functional, but well, I don't know, just watch. So, in Liquid Sword's own words, how will the combat evolve beyond this? Oh yeah, it sounds like every other game I've ever played, but it could be cool if the skills are. They're not. I'm not even gonna put an ellipses after that. They're all stat boosts. Almost none of them offer any new way to interact with the world or the activities within it. Alright, next. Yeah, nah. Look, in all fairness, maybe that changes later on in the game. In my experience, however, Tindleston didn't just need some fucking aggressive CPR. This place was the fake torso they used to teach you CPR in first aid. And I'm sorry to say, that little guy ain't waking up. Every emergent quest was the same cat in a different coat. A few people talking, one of them is a mean guy, and Samson can barrel in and tell them no, he does not like that they're dealing drugs, and can either leave it alone or kill them. Our next little promise is... Let me be clear. 1 open world district. I'm not one to complain about the size of things. I'm all for quality over quantity, but despite the limited praise I gave the city, there's not a whole lot here. I'm assuming by hostile blocks they mean these guys that just stand around a conveniently placed stash on the street corner. Oh, and the history is a camera zoom out and a text box. Super interesting stuff. Our penultimate quote is... Okay, no one came for the story. Do I have to prove that to you? The cutscenes look like this. Should have just stuck with the whole comic book vibe. There's a motivation, that's true, but it's for the debt loop solely. Otherwise it tries to draw you in with a bastardized version of every gangster game ever created. I'm not the dishonest type, so truly I wouldn't know really. It could be a banger once you get into it, but the incentive isn't there. And finally, this is where I get to talk about the gameplay loop that sells the game. Samson is in debt, and he has to pay it back every day with interest if he comes up short. And if you're unlucky, the titular characters from Ryan Coogler's John Wick will dog walk you. In writing, this is really cool, and it's the kind of system I can see in some out-of-the-blue indie roguelike that sells millions of copies. But they just don't do anything with it. It's as simple comes. But it's so simple to the point of eating into the concept itself. It's day after day of meaningless tasks with different bland flavors. Monday, it's a trailing mission that works half the time it might in a Ubisoft game. Tuesday, it's bumper cars with mediocre car destruction. Wednesday, Samson has to collect the stash of some gang, but they've placed it in little taped up boxes randomly around the place to pad out the mission, I guess. For some inexplicable reason, there's a guy guarding one of these boxes on the fucking roof, and his idea of guarding is just staring at it. Okay, Thursday, and every other damn day, it's beat up a bunch of guys day. Certainly not a terrible thing if beating them up wasn't so terrible. Beyond fixing his car after a little romp or two, there's no incentive for Samson to spend his money outside of saving for the debt. And even then, he can just use someone else's car in a pinch. Samson can't buy clothes, food, upgrade, or customize his car. There didn't seem to be any people in need of money for a good moral dilemma either. I don't know, man. I thought there'd be more to make paying your debt a meaningful task. As it stands, and this is purely tinfoil hat conspiracy shit, this seems like a way to pad out how little they had to offer from the original project, like they needed to somehow railroad us into doing bare bones side missions ad infinitum to make the content draw out a little less dry. And if you'll allow me to be even more conspiratorial, I'm pretty sure, with absolutely zero proof, that a whole lot of the game's description on Steam, this little developer message, and the script for one of the official trailers are at the very least partially AI generated. All of it is a little suspicious to me, but I'll highlight a few key lines from each, and if you're interested, you can go have a look for yourself. In the Steam description, these two sentences are sandwiched together and structured in the exact same way. A rhythmic, generic, informationally useless list, and then the good old classic, it's not X, it's Y. And for a Steam description, it reads pretty abstract, no? It's so close to specificity, but it kinda doesn't tell you anything about the game. It's too synthetic. In the pre-release developer message, same thing here, but then there's also these. More contrastive framing. However, the most illuminating part of this message is that near the end, and I'm assuming they're using an LLM for translation or a similar effect, giving it far too much creative control, mind you. Near the end, it seems to miss a few lines. I don't mean to say I think the broken English is funny, but that it isn't hard to see the contrast between this and everything else, all supposedly written by the same person. And from the trailer,
They called it opportunity. I called it debt. They weren't negotiators. They were punctuation. Sleep didn't fix a thing. It just reset the clock.
you get the picture. Luckily, that's where I'll end my little crusade. Now for... So, look, I didn't want this game to be bad. I expected it to be, yeah, but I hate it just as much as you might when people seem to prey upon a game's downfall. I sincerely hope that the next game I play is the best game I've played. Until the next. Obviously that's impossible and I'm not delusional, but I'd rather keep a positive outlook on things. I really would. Now bear with me for a moment. I've got a little backstory for this verdict, if you can call it that. Last month I refunded Crimson Desert after around 2 hours of playtime. The game didn't gel with me. There's too much to get into, but I didn't even think to post a video on that because I knew I hadn't even scratched the surface, and that it wouldn't be nearly fair of me to give a proper verdict on a game I couldn't even pretend to understand. But Samson played its hand too early. If you hadn't guessed already, I didn't stick with this one either. But unlike Crimson Desert, this one displays its depth from minute one. If we imagined, for a moment, that all the bugs, and this game is bugged to the gills, that all of them were ironed out, it would not save it. This isn't Cyberpunk 2077, the problem doesn't truly lie with the technical quality of the first 2 hours, it's that I have a sneaking suspicion that the next 10 won't be any better. And this video was just a super long-winded way to explain why those first 2 hours were my last. Hey, if you're still with me, I'm James. If this was a pretty funny video, and I'm hoping it was a pretty funny video, subscribe. I'll do this with, I'll keep doing this with like one subscriber. I won't do this with one subscriber. I need like, subscribe to me. That's why I'm asking. But it would be cooler if I would do this regardless of how many subscribers I have. So I'll say that, and you can imagine that I said that, and then we'll just continue on like nothing happened, and that'll be all cool.
Whoa, sweet lady.